Good evening and welcome to the Syntax Podcast. We're your hosts, Mac and Kerm. Let's get started.
Hey, Mac.
Hey, Kerm, how are you tonight?
I am tired.
Yeah, I feel your pain, man. Long days
Yeah.
add up, and especially when you start them at ungodly and unreasonable hours, and then try
Yeah.
to
Well,
run that pace through for 7 days a week.
yeah, 7. I wish there were 8, but you're right. There's only 7. Yeah, we got a new puppy dog, and that on top of the 2 kids, the 2 cats, home improvement, side hobbies, podcast, work. There's a lot going on.
It's a lot. It
Yeah,
really is a lot,
there's a
and
lot.
it's not exactly like you're 20 anymore either. I mean, this really starts to take a toll on you after a while.
It's like, hindsight's 2020 and I'm 2022. 20 plus 20 equals 40 plus 3 is me. Huh? You like that?
That was
It was you know what that was? That was
that
me
was a
falling
really
down the
bad math
stairs.
word problem. That's
Well, it
what
was
that
me
was.
falling down the stairs in slow motion and then
Nice.
figure out what I was going to do about
Yeah,
it.
no, it's good. I'm glad I was
Yeah,
here to be part of it.
sure. So you mentioned long days and whatnot, and actually today I'm feeling kind of sluggish. I'm tired. I did not get up early this morning to do my morning routine that I've been doing, and part of that is I do blame that puppy because we have to get up and put him out just like he was a baby. Only I've gotten beyond that. I thought I have not now. On top of that, just long days and in the fall and encroaching on us. It sucks the energy out of you.
Yeah, I feel
Couple
that.
that,
Yeah.
couple that with stress, right?
Yeah, and honestly, the the sun doesn't come up at a reasonable hour anymore.
Oh yeah,
And
you're right.
that's very difficult, and it's getting darker earlier, which is just all these things add up, and they really start to wear on you for sure. Um, I've I've actually dropped my one of a piece of a regular piece of my workout routine. I've actually dropped just because it's so dark for such an extended period of time.
So you're not running on the streets in the dark anymore?
No, I had to dial that back. It's in the summer, it's not bad because usually I leave when it's dark, but by the time I'm probably a quarter of the way or so through the run, at least the pseudo, illumination is occurring. It's so black that even running with a flashlight is just like me and a tiny little spot of illumination, and that's it. It's
Right.
not. Yeah, it really takes the fun out of it.
So I guess if people listening haven't kind of bought into the theme as of yet, I guess we're talking about life in the 21st century, exercise over 40, and trying to stay at least semi-healthy mentally and physically.
I'm actually glad. Yeah, I'm glad we're actually talking about this specific topic. I've actually waited quite a bit to be on this topic because it's something that's very near and dear to my existence, and quite frankly, it's something that was a fairly difficult transition to make, despite the fact that it's something that needed to be done, and you can look at it from the outside, and you can look at it as you were saying earlier, 2020, and look back and go, oh yeah, that was definitely the obvious decision. But when you're in the moment and you're in that fog, I guess you really struggle to find the right path to transition, and I think that is very different for everyone, and it's not something that's kind of cut and dry per se, because it's really based on your goals and based on your desires and your wants, and the catalyst. I mean, Christ, I'm 40 something, 3 2, I don't know, I'm old, And if I could say anything to my younger self, probably the one of the first things I'd say is, "Hey, man, go to the gym." Legitimately, I wish I had the access then that I do now, because it's definitely a big change.
Right. And you mentioned motivation. I think most people to some extent are competitive, in general, whether they want to admit it or not. And I think finding that motivation can either be a competitive thing, and competition doesn't have to be with others. It can be with yourself. Whether it be, I'll go into myself a little bit here. You and I and some other folks did a not a tough mutter challenge, but something called a tough mountain challenge up here, and that was a couple of years back because they canceled it last year. And so I knew I was going to do it, and I'm going to give my perspective on the whole thing. I knew I was going to do it. I kind of sort of worked out a little bit here and there. I was about 225, 230 pounds at that time. And I live kind of rurally out here, and my thing was running from telephone pole to the next telephone pole, and then walking a telephone pole to the next telephone pole, because I have a pole line near me, which seems kind of it seems kind of short right now, thinking back on it and whatnot. But that's all I could push. I didn't have the the ability to run a distance, but I did that until I could get a little bit further, and then eventually we did that challenge, and we did it as a group, and we did decent for our age group. And you're 42, I believe, and I'm 43. I'm going to be 44 next year. And just on that right there, between then and now, and I think I'd be further along if it wasn't for this past year with COVID and everything else that happened with that, all the cancellations, all the really, um, I don't even know, the destruction of the way that we lived our lives. I think that I think I would be further along anyhow. So we did that tough mountain race again this past year, and I think we all took off about a half hour of our time. Which what was the original run time that we all had? It was an hour and
It was an hour
40,
30 something, hour 40 something. It
37,
was it
40.
was
Yeah.
long. It really
Right.
was long. And it was man, I could really do this. I could do this for hours, because I think about that original discussion, and the conversations that you and I had about signing up for this, and just I could go back with that conversation because I remember that moment so definitively. But we did this we did this race, and we did it for the sole purposes of saying we did it and to finish. And time wasn't the most important thing, and being, the fastest and the biggest and the bestest and strongest wasn't the most important thing. But cooperatively, we set our minds out to doing something, and seeing it through to the end. And that was, I think, a huge portion of that excuse me, of that achievement. But this year, the COVID has really bred a sedentary lifestyle. It
Mm.
really puts you in a mindset where it's just so crushing, right? It's this constant extra weight you have to carry around all the time, and it's so easily.
We had like 30 people signed up to be on our team this the previous year, right? Last year, 2020,
So by the
30
time,
30 something.
yeah, by the time the pre-registration had closed for the race that was supposed to occur in 2020, we had 27 registered, paid for, signed up participants on our team alone.
Right.
And we raced this year as four of us.
Right.
The three of us that were in the original sign up from a couple of years ago, and then my wife, who took it on by herself like a rock star,
Yeah,
wasn't going
a
to
completely
back
different heat.
down. Exactly.
Yeah.
Different
Yeah.
heat, different race style, different everything, because you and I committed to a very different type of race this year. You and I committed to all in, hell or high water, every man for himself. We're putting numbers up. Like we're gonna push as hard as we can physically do to see how far we can test our limits and see where we stand versus when we originally signed up for this. My wife signed up for what we did a couple of years ago. I want to
Right.
finish. And she powered through when no one else was there. And she was able to just put it in and get it done. And it was awesome to have that extra layer to the whole event. Um,
And I
because
can't get your wife to tell my wife to convince my wife to do it because my wife will not do it.
which is unfortunate because I think
Yeah. My
every
wife runs
time,
3 miles every day,
yeah,
every single day.
exactly. She's definitely well suited
Right.
for the event. I don't know, man. I really, I think I remember that time, and I'm gonna digress a bit to that discussion because I remember you and I started kicking this idea around, and then I had signed up, and Ashley had signed up, and Ashley is a, I mean, she's a personal trainer. That's her job. She is far more qualified than you and I will ever be to be in a situation to run up and down a mountain, more or less do anything else physically challenging. And we talked, and I was like, "Did you sign up yet?" No, I'm gonna do it. Did you sign up yet? No, 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 I'm gonna do it. And that conversation continued. Like, okay, I've done it. Leave me alone. Like I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm good. I got it. Like, and we got through the event, and I just remember at the end, the three of us standing there going, "We just did a thing," and we did it in a way that was our own. Like we did it together. We saw it through to the end, and I was so excited at that moment to sign up for the next one. Like
Yeah.
literally at 12 o'clock and 3 seconds, we were logged in on the side of the road on our cell phones.
Refresh, refresh,
Exactly,
refresh.
waiting for the registration period to open. Like it was such a thing, that we were so like, yes, let's do it again. Except for this
Right.
time, let's double down.
Right. Now you're a slim guy build wise. I mean, if people put us in a lineup, you next to me, and they picked, okay, which one is the long distance guy and which one's not, obviously they go to you. I joke around and say if Mac turned sideways, we wouldn't be able to see him. Not that you're actually that small. It's all in good fun. But I dropped off about 30 to 35 pounds on this newest run. And I also dropped off about 35 minutes off this newest run, give or take. And you dropped off even more. What we didn't say is on the first, well, you kind of alluded to it. On the first one, we kind of all stuck together, kind of a team effort to pull everybody through from start to finish and finish kind of at the same time. Even though I kept on telling you guys to keep going because I thought I was going to die. But this time around, it was, we'll say every man for themselves in the most reasonably nice and courteous way. And you had said, a few moments ago that basically hella high water or, pushing through it and all that. And I will say, and I'll tell you what I want for my next time coming up this following year, because of course we've already signed up again. Um, I will say that I believe I could have taken another 5 or 10 minutes off my time, but it was more of a mental stop than it was a physical stop for me. I was mentally exhausted about halfway through the shuffle of everything, and a lot of it had to do with the different way that we were doing this run versus the first one. Being that we were kind of pushing through, and there's a lot of people out there, and you can only push through so many people or try to get around so many people or deal with so many things happening before you start to get exhausted yourself, mentally. So my goal, and I'm telling you right now, my goal for next year is to match my age. So I want to do next year's run. Am I 43 or 42? I don't know. I don't know. I want to do next year's run at my age. So that's my goal. Whatever,
But
like,
yeah, that's a serious. For anybody who's done this or doesn't know, this is a 21 obstacle, 4 mile up an aggressive, well-known main ski resort, and it is mud, it is elevation, it is, they throw all these different challenges at you. It's a very aggressive event. And last year we said, before we registered for the next time, we said sub 60. That was the goal, sub
Right.
60. And
Right.
we met that goal, met and exceeded that. And I think of 40 is an aggressive goal,
Yeah.
without question. And I agree with what you're saying about it was a different feel. Um, running, we train by ourselves.
Yeah.
That's more often than not. You're getting your headspace and you just push. Um, but it does definitely change the dynamic when you go to an event that you're like, we worked it together, we ran it together, we practiced, we trained, we start to finish, we were all a group. And then to come at it again, and you're by yourself, and your team's there, and everybody's competing to get the same goal. Like, I mean, we finished as a team, like 12th, as an overall team, which was great. We had a lot of members from all over that were registered in, a couple from that we knew, but you're talking about four people and two other people that just registered for our team. So six of us managed to finish 12th overall out of the entire competition and there were some incredibly competitive teams. So I
Yeah.
mean, that's nothing to scoff at by any stretch of the imagination, but it definitely is it's a different mindset. And you do feel a bit defeated because you're like, well, we're all here to accomplish the end result, but you feel, I guess, that you lose some of the middle part by not having, like, look over, like, hey, there's my left and there's my right, like we're all right there, even though
Right.
we're literally minutes apart. I could
Right.
I could see you from 90% of the time. I'd be like, hey, there's Karen. That it's just not the same. I 100% agree.
Right. 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 So, I'm gonna keep on going back on what you said. It's kind of how these things kind of play off, though. You play off of what the last person said to an extent. So here's what I changed in my life. Okay, and here's actually the inside in-depth reason, the mentality, and the complete inside reason, my internal reason for changing this. I'm getting old. I have two young kids. Um, in the United States, as a society, well, we're having kids as we get older, for the most part. Obviously some people still having kids young, but I think there's a lot of, mid 30s, late 30s, even early 40s people having, children, which means that if you wanted to say as a medium age, 20, when a kid is an adult, I know you could say 18, you could possibly say 21, whatever, but I'm going to say 20. So if you're 35 and you have a kid, you're going to be 55 before that kid is a quote unquote adult. If you're 40, you're going to be 60, you know? So as an age, or as you age, you start to realize that you're not going to live forever. And you also start to realize that things start to hurt. And you also start to realize that, if I do plan on living long enough to see my kids grow up and be in the place that I'm at my life right now, which I want to at least be healthy enough to enjoy it to some extent. So, my youngest is 6. So I got, I got at least 14 years, which puts me, into my late or middle late 50s, before she's an adult. And that is my internal, reasoning for getting more fit. And the steps I took specifically, well, number one was getting off my ass. I mean, literally getting off your butt. The biggest excuse people have when it comes to exercise is they don't have time. I can tell you that I definitively do not have time. I don't have time for a lot of things, but there are ways to make more time. You choose what you want to do. If you say you have no time to do something and you watch Survivor every week, then you need to look at yourself. You need to look at what you're doing and say, you know what? I have time. I'm just not choosing to do the things that I don't have time for.
Oh,
And
for
that's
sure.
fine. Yeah, that's fine. Or I'm too busy, those types of things. But the first step is basically coming up with a routine, and that routine can be modifiable. It doesn't have to be concrete, it just has to be something where, this week, and I'm not going to keep putting it off to the end of the week. This week, I am going to run 2 or 3 miles 3 or 4 times, And if you do 6 miles in a day, hooray for you, great, that's good. The next day, maybe you don't, maybe you don't have time. Maybe you literally do not have time. You work late, you work until 6:30 at night. You get home, you're having dinner, you're with the family, but that next, you got to do it as soon as you get an opportunity to do those things. And it's actually, what, as a general for life in general, I think that's the biggest thing that everybody needs to realize is if you do things when you can, and when I say when you can, I mean right as soon as you can, you're going to wind up with more time. Don't wait to do things. If you wait to do things, you're going to waste time. Do them now.
Well, that's it too. And I definitely I see that. Um, I see that often, and it's you're talking about 2, 3, 6 miles, and for some people, 2, 3, 6 miles is a pipe dream. 2, 3, 6 miles is literally the most daunting concept ever. But how about a 5 minute walk? And how about I'm going to start training next week? Doesn't work. I'm going to start training. No, no, Monday. No, no, just after. You know what? There's always tomorrow. There's always an excuse. There's always going to be a delay or an interruption, or there's going to be the next thing. And it won't become something that is going to be feasible in your life until you make it a priority.
Yeah, do
And
some planks, do some sit-ups, do something while you're watching the TV,
sure, for sure. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a crazy routine. Now,
No.
I live an irrational routine. The schedule that I'm on is not reasonable, and it's not meant to be maintained by normal humans. It's an unreasonable schedule. I would never expect that for anyone else. But for me to achieve the time to keep the things that I have in my priorities um, feasible, I have to start at an unreasonably early hour, and I continue to prioritize my day as they continue. Um, and that comes down to not
Sorry.
as much about finding time about as it does making time. I used to get up at let's say you need to be at work for 8 o'clock, right? So then you get up at 6, get ready, out the door 7:30, pretty reasonable for an average day. But then you find you're working late, you're working through lunch, this thing happens, that thing happens. Before you know it, it's 9, 10 o'clock at night. And you're tired, or you're not super motivated to really do anything else, or you've been on your feet all day, or you've been so mentally exhausted. The notion of taking on anything else is like, you know what? Survivor's starting to sound pretty good right about now. It is, I mean, that's a statement because that's not good. It's not good. Survivor's not good.
Yeah, I don't like reality TV.
It's not good. You get to that point, and you have to prioritize. And
Yeah.
for me, I started with just 1 hour. I got up an hour earlier, and I took that 1 hour. I took 15 minutes to just kind of come to life. Find an extra 15 minutes to, you know, get dressed, get woken up, and just kind of come to, and then spend half an hour to 45 minutes in the gym. And it was not, I say gym loosely. It was a room that I was not my bedroom or my living room, that had a couple of random free weights that belonged to my wife. And that was really how it started. And we can definitely spend hours talking about the catalyst that got me to get up that morning and change. But beyond all of that, and the things that really get you motivated to start, as far as the routine goes, if you make the time first and give it a spot, then it's less likely something can interrupt it. So what I found is that I made that extra, I just 1 hour. Instead of getting up at 6:30, I got up at 5:30, which seemed really early at the time. And it seemed like, Jesus, this is like huge. But 15 minutes extra of just, it was literally extra 15 minutes to kind of just find a little bit of peace in the morning. And the house is really quiet and everybody else is still sleeping. And then go to the gym and just try. I found a random Beachbody on demand app that kept me engaged. And I did that.
To your core.
Yeah, I did that. And it was because what information did I have? I have these weights. If I pick them up and I put them down, I should see change, right? I mean, that's the
Yeah.
ultimate goal, right? I mean, that's,
Yeah.
yeah, that's Arnold. That's Arnold to a T.
Yeah.
I pick things up, I put them down,
Yeah.
and that was not enough.
Right.
Um,
But it does get your blood flowing. I mean,
it does. It's the
it,
start.
so when you say not enough, I'm not going to disagree with you in the large scope of things, but in the short term and whatnot, just doing that was enough to break the ice, though. I mean,
For sure.
it's what it comes down to. You know,
Absolutely.
it's like so many things in life. It's like taking a band-aid off. You just have to do it. You can't. I mean, you can slowly peel it off if you want, but it's going to come off. You know, you can just rip it off in one shot. It's going to come off either way. It's like trying foods that you're not comfortable with. It's like talking in front of people. It's like starting a podcast. It's like driving in heavy traffic in the middle of Boston. You know, there are so many things that we as people have to do. And, you know, we're all grown-ups, you know, and grown up, I use again as a loose term, and that could be anybody from age 16 to 666, you know, grown up means that you have to do things that you're not always comfortable with. Grown up means that you have to take responsibility for things that you may not feel that you are completely responsible for. But it means that you have to be responsible for yourself first and foremost, and you have to take initiative and do things to better you and the people around you.
Well, that, yeah, no one's going to do it for you, right? Like
Right.
you picking up the weights is not going to make me stronger. That's not going to change.
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
It would be. It'd be super
Just
convenient.
pay somebody.
The the real change happens when you are willing to get outside of your comfort zone. That's really when
Right.
you see results. And the result could just be literally, I got up an hour earlier to do an extra thing. Is the ultimate goal going to be I can compete in body competitions? No. Is the ultimate goal going to be I can look at myself in a mirror and go like, yeah, that was time well spent? Maybe, maybe
Yeah.
not. Is it just, you know what? I may inadvertently make my existence last a little bit longer,
Yeah.
or
Like eat
be
more chocolate cake.
exactly, or be a little bit less miserable in 20 years or
Right.
20 minutes.
Right.
I
Or have less back problem.
for sure,
You know.
my back was a disaster
Oh, me
until I
too.
got in the gym. Um, my
Headaches.
back, oh,
I used to have a lot of headaches. I'd have headaches almost every single day. Heartburn. I mean, I can list off, and this is gonna sound like complete BS, but back pain, I would say 90% gone. Headaches, I would say 90%. Heartburn, I would say 95. Um, Let me think here. Joint pain, probably 60, 65, but I'm getting older as I
yeah,
exercise, so that's coming either way. Sleep, being able to get to sleep and accomplish like a deep sleep, I think that's up 50%. Snoring is down probably 75%. And I've only, you might be slightly different, and I know you're slightly different in terms of what you're doing because you eat more healthy than I do. I haven't really changed all that much on what I eat and when I eat. I will think not once, twice, or three times, or at all about having some chocolate pudding at 9:30 o'clock at night, right before I jump into bed. And I know,
you're an animal.
I know, but I have to. I'm still, in my belly. I'm still all about having something to eat right before I go to bed, which is totally horrible for for my fitness. But like you had mentioned, I'm basically buying that by doing the things that I do to offset that. I could progress further and do the things that would make me even a better more fit person, but as of right now, that's where I'm at in my progression.
Well, your progression is geared towards doing something that gives you the leeway to have those joyful moments and to be able to indulge in those without having massive physical detriments, right? Because if you didn't do any of the other stuff and then just did the ice cream and the puddings and the little treats that make really
I
to
didn't
make
say
life
ice
worth it.
cream. How'd you know about the ice cream?
I know your secrets.
Yeah, I
The
saw you
little
eating ice cream
treats that
yesterday.
make it all worthwhile. Um, you you you're just going to continue to downward spiral, right? You're not going to feel better. You're not going to get better. You're not, and look, I'm a big proponent of you can't outrun your fork, right? You can't, no matter what you do. The reason they call it diet and exercise, and diet is the leading portion of that, is if you committed 100% of your time to diet and exercise, you could take 90% of that time and focus on diet, and it would be, and 10% on exercise, and it would be 100% more beneficial than if you flip flop the two. You can't exercise a bad diet, but you also cannot live in a world that is beneficial if you put in nothing. Yeah, it's garbage in, garbage out. And if you're not putting in any work at all and you're just like, yeah, I'm going to have this because it's good and I like it. Great. That's great. I like food. Food is good.
Right.
Food is delicious. Food is my chocolate is my weakness. It gets me every time. Fresh baked
Double
brownies and
chocolate cake,
cookies. No, I tell you, man, cake is the death. I will die eating cake.
vacation
I'm
cake.
guaranteed. A vacation cake gets me. I like those things and I like them a lot. And it's one of those struggles that I'm like, that's my vice. I know who I am. So I have to mentally try to avoid those things to an extent. But when the opportunity comes up and it makes sense, I have them because they make me happy. And cake is good. I like it. So I'm not advocating for such a strict diet that you're miserable all the time, because I've been through that in an attempt to go through a heavy cut or to do a recomposition. I've done vegan diet. I've done very, very strict calorie intake. I've done very, very strict sugar intake. Really, you can do a lot to your body by controlling your diet.
Don't get me started on sugar.
Yeah, yeah,
I
I know.
I think sugar is probably, I'm gonna call it a chemical because people don't like chemicals. They like all natural things, but I'm gonna call sugar a chemical. Because let's face it, every whether it's natural or not natural, everything is a chemical when you break it down into its components. And I think sugar is one of the worst chemicals you can put in your body. I again, kind of a tit for tat of what you were saying earlier. And I gotta kind of move on here so the family I can wrap up. But before we get into that, the statement you had made about the dieting and the percentages and whatnot, and you can't outrun your fork and whatnot. So I will say one thing just for people out there with different states of mind, because part of this whole reason for having this conversation or having these conversations is because we don't have the exact same view. And on what you had said, I'm just gonna tell you a little bit different of a view on that, because I do think that some people, you can't exercise away a bad diet, but some people have what other people would consider to be a bad diet specifically to do certain things. I think a combination of diet and exercise leads to different things. Now, if you want to cut yourself, meaning get fat off your body, then you're going to cut carbohydrates, you're going to cut the sugar out, you're going to cut, some of the fats and some of the protein, but you could also be looking at a diet where fat and protein is what 90% is your makeup of your diet. There are so many ways that your body reacts. And you know what? Science doesn't even know at this point. Something as fundamental as how our bodies actually, you know, function in terms of how we actually, I mean, we know we digest food. We know we need certain vitamins and minerals, and we know those types of things, but we don't really know how to lose weight per se. We know that if we have a deficit of calories, then our body is going to eat the fat cells, but it will also eat the muscle cells.
Agreed.
We don't know how to change those things. It's part of our genetics. It's kind of like, people talk about the ocean, how unexplored the oceans are. Our bodies are so unexplored. We don't know so many things when it comes down to it. I mean, I know people, my brother-in-law, there are times where he'll eat 6, 7, 8,000 calories in a day, and he will work out 4 or 5 hours a day. And obviously he's not trying to cut, he's trying to put muscle on, but specifically he's causing his body to tear muscle and rebuild muscle and provide, the calories in the food intake to be able to do that. Obviously most people don't do things like that. That's an extreme. I think veganism to a certain extent can be extreme unless you're doing it for, other reasons. But I think having holistic diets where people get a good combination of things, try to stay away from majorly processed foods, try to, do your own cooking, try to stay away from a lot of salt, and actually not so much with the blood pressure thing and hypertension, things like that, but more for the water gain and retention that you have when you eat a lot of salt, and stay away from sugar, because sugar does a lot of things to your body, and your mind. I mean, sugar can really mess you up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And here's the other thing too. What works for you, it doesn't work for me,
Yep.
and it won't work for my wife, which doesn't work for your wife. And the human body really is such a delicate and unique machine that you cannot apply the same fuel and expect the same outcome. They just don't work the same. And you compound that with your goals and your catalysts and your external stressors and your internal stressors. And the formula it's never the same. You're
Right.
not going to get the same result because you're not applying the same equation.
Well, you figure we're basically a combination petri dish slash test tube. You put those two things together, you pretty much have a human being. You know,
Yeah.
we're filled
Yeah.
with chemicals, and biology. Whether it be microbiology or full size biology, but that's pretty much what we are. We are biology and chemicals. Everything we do is based on certain things happening internally. Every thought we have, every that we go completely down a rabbit hole with that. But before we wind up down that rabbit hole, I think this has been a good conversation about, at least an intro to, who we are, and where we are in our lives in terms of age and health and well-being and those types of things. So I'm going to kind of let off here by saying I really appreciate anybody that's listening, and I hope that we're helping motivate anybody. I'd be more than willing to talk to anybody that like to start down a path to maybe getting a little bit healthier. I am not a professional by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm more than happy to tell anybody about what works for me. And if you are interested in those types of conversations, I suggest you ask as many people as possible. Whether you reach out to people locally, you reach out to some guy in a podcast, you reach out to somebody that you see on a YouTube video. Whatever you do, just reach out, get all those different flavors, those combinations, and then just start trying. Hammer away at it, chip away at it little by little, find something that works for you, and eventually you'll get where you want to be.
Yeah. I love this topic. I could do this for hours. I'm sure we'll
Mini
have
series.
exactly. There will be several more hours of this and similar topics. Um, and it really comes down to just getting it in your head. It's time for change,
Yep.
and just take the first step. And if that first step is a stumble, you stand up and you take a second step. It's you know I always say, and it seems a bit cliche, but you didn't gain the weight overnight. You didn't develop the bad lifestyle overnight. You're not going to lose it. You're not going to break it overnight. It takes time. It's a process. It's not something that's going to be an immediate result, and the only thing you can do is just put in the time and continue to. You're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some. That's life. But if you show up every day, that's more than most people are doing, and that's really part of being human, and making the difference. It's just showing up.
Well, thanks, Mac. It was great having this conversation with you. And like you said, I think we could probably have multiple conversations about this, and I think we probably will.
Yeah, for sure. This is fun. You've been listening to the Syntax Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. To make sure you never miss an upcoming episode, don't forget to click that subscribe button. And for more information on the show, visit us at www.syntaxpod.com.